Sechus Bava Kamma Daf Nun Beis. We begin with the last few lines in Daf Nun Aleph, where the Gemara is discussing ways of making a kinyan on several objects. In each situation, the Gemara will mention a way to make a kinyan which the Gemara finds surprising, and then explain that it's a way of the seller indicating to the buyer that the deal is closed and you can go complete the kinyan. So the first one is Rav Elazar says if somebody sells a well to his friend, as soon as he gives him the lid, it's like he's kind of. The Gemara asks, a well should be bought with money or with chazaka? What is this handing over the well? So Gemara explains it's really chazaka, but the seller has to say the deal is finalized, go make a chazaka, and by giving him the lid, it's as if he said that. Next is a Rishu ben Levi says somebody sells a house, he's kind of when he gives him the keys. So Gemara asks again, it could be a kinyan kesef or kinyan chazaka. What is this giving of the keys? And Gemara explains he's telling him to go do a chazaka. Instead of saying, go make a chazaka, handing him the keys accomplishes that. Next case the Gemara has is Reish Lakish, who says name of Rabbi Yana. If somebody sells a herd to his friend, as soon as he gives him the mashchuchis, that which draws the herd after it, the Gemara will explain what, he is kainit. Again, the Gemara asks, the herd should be bought with either mashicha or with mesira, either by pulling it, hitting it with a stick and making it move, or by handing over the reins. What is this giving over of the thing that they all follow? The Gemara explains again, it's a kinyan Mashicha, and instead of him saying go do a Mashicha, by giving him this mashchuchis, it's as if he said to him go do a Mashicha. Now what's this mashchuchis? Gemara brings two explanations. Here in Bavel, the Gemara says it's the bell that the shepherd uses to call the flock. And Yaakov said it's a special leader of the herd, the goat that they all follow. As soon as he gives them control of that goat specifically, the rest of them will follow afterwards. The Gemara brings an example of an expression people use that shows that it was a drasha said by that Galilah, who Galilah, to Rav Chizda, that when the shepherd gets angry at the flock, he blinds the eyes of the lead goat. An expression referring to when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is upset with Klal Yisrael, he will make the leaders lead them wrong, and there you have the expression of the goat that leads the flock. Okay, now we begin our next Mishnah, which continues discussing the halachos of a bar that's owned by Shutvin, and then it gets more into the general halachos of the bar. In our last Mishnah, we saw that a bar that's owned by Shutvin, and the first one passes by, and he uses the bar, and then he hands it off to the next one. He specifically leaves the second one, the other Shutiv, using the bar. In that situation, the first one is not responsible for what happens afterwards. So if the second Shutiv leaves it uncovered, the first one is not responsible because he left it with the second one. The second one is fully responsible. If, however, he would have left it uncovered and walked away, and then the second one comes and he leaves it uncovered and walked away, they both are responsible, and they would share in the responsibility if whoever falls in afterwards. Now our Mishnah speaks about if the first one covers it and the second one comes and finds it uncovered because the cover collapsed or it fell apart or something along those lines, and then the second one does not cover it, he's fully responsible. The first one covered, the second one did not cover, so the second one is responsible. Next case is if he covers it properly, but someone falls in anyway. The Gemara will explain how that happens. Either Shar or Chamar falls in and dies, he is putter. If he did not cover it properly, and then someone fell in, he's chayev. Next case the Gemara discusses if somebody's working in the bottom of the bar. He is digging to widen or to deepen the bar, and the ox is walking near the bar, and he gets startled by the sound of the shovel, and then he falls. So if he falls forward into the bar, then he's chayev for it. If he falls backwards into the bar, then he's putter for it. Now, generally, when an animal falls into the bar, so the devices that a shar has on him usually break. The devices that the donkey usually have on him usually tear. So if a shar falls in and his kalim break, a chamar falls in and his kalim rip, then he's chayev for the behemoth putter on the kalim, as the general halacha which this Mishnah holds, which most hold, that there is a ptur on kalim in the bar. You're only chayev for the animal. Now, if the animal that fell in was a cheresh, shaita, or katan, so then he is chayev. If he's a young ben or bas, or an even or amma, for that you are putter. Okay, we now begin the Gemara. The Gemara's first question is, when you say that the first person, the first owner who was there, is putter, because he covered it, and the second person is chayiv because he found it uncovered, even though he left it uncovered. He's chayiv because he left it uncovered. How long does the p'tur of the first person continue for? How long is it before he starts becoming responsible to cover his bar again? How long are we going to blame the second person for? So the Gemara brings three opinions. The Gemara's first one is Rav, who says that until he finds out about it. Shmuel says it's until enough time for him to have found out about it. Even if he didn't actually find out about it, we hold him responsible from the time to which he should know about it. And Yochanan says until the time that he could find out about it and actually do something about it, that's until he could go hire workers, cut down trees, and build a cover to cover it. Interestingly, for the second person, we're not going to give him that time, because since he found it uncovered, he just walked away, he's responsible to do something about it. If he can't cover it, he should at least hire workers to stand there and watch it and make sure nobody falls in. Okay, next question the Gemara has on the Mishnah is, we said that if he covers it properly and a shara chamar falls in, he's putter. The Gemara says, if he covered it properly, how did anybody fall in there? So the Gemara answers at first that it got wormy and it got rotten. And now the Gemara is going to get into a whole sugya and use this question as a raya. So the Gemara says we had a question as follows. If somebody covered a bar with a cover that is strong enough to keep an ox out, but not strong enough to hold up to a camel. So as far as oxen are concerned, he did a good job. As far as camels are concerned, he did not do a good job. Then what happened is that a camel came and broke it. The camel didn't fall in, but now that it's broken, an ox fell in. So if a camel would have just fallen in, we would say for sure he's chayiv, because he didn't cover it properly as far as camels are concerned. But that's not what happened. What happened is that an ox fell in, and it wasn't his fault because he covered it for oxen. So what's the halacha here? So the Gemara says, well, let's try to understand what the issue here. If camels are common here, so the fact that he covered it for oxen is useless, because camels are going to break it for sure. So he's a posheya. Not only is he a posheya for camels, he's a posheya as far as oxen are concerned, because it's likely to break. And if they're not common, so he's an einus. Why should he do something to protect against something which is not going to happen? So the Gemara says it must be that it's not common, it's not uncommon. Something that happens sometimes. It could happen with moderate level of frequency. Now, if a camel would have just fallen, we would say, all right, it could have happened, and he should have thought of it, and he didn't cover it, and therefore he's responsible for it. However, since a camel didn't fall in, but an ox fell in, then we say, look, a camel didn't actually fall in. So you can't, even though camels fall in from time to time, you can't blame him for that, because it's not what actually happened. And therefore, is he responsible for the situation in which the ox fell in? So the Gemara wants to bring a proof from our Mishnah. The Gemara is bothered by, what does the Mishnah mean that he covered it and something fell in? That itself is the problem. The Gemara wants to say it must be referring to our situation. So the Gemara says as follows. The Mishnah says if he covered it properly and a shara chamar fell in and he died, you're pater. Says the Gemara, what are we talking about here? If it was covered properly for oxen and properly for camels, so then how did anything fall in? And if it was covered properly for oxen but not for camels, so if camels are common, why should be pater? He's a pasheya, just like we said. If camels are uncommon, so then for sure he's pater, he's an einus. It must be the case is exactly our case, where camels come from time to time, and the camel, what actually happened was the camel came and he broke it, and then an ox actually fell in, which is exactly our case, and yet it says that you're pater. So you see, since he's an einus, because it was an ox that fell in, not a camel, so it must be that it's possible in our situation that you're pater for. So Gemara says no. The case is, as we said before, no one came and broke it. The situation was that you covered it properly for oxen and for camels. Nothing could have fallen in, but it got rotten, it got wormy, and therefore somebody fell in. The Gemara now tries to bring a proof from the next line in the Mishnah. The next line says that if it's not covered properly and a shara chamar fall in and it dies, you're chayiv. So Gemara, what are we referring to? Again, we must be referring to our case. If we were referring to where it was not covered properly at all, not for oxen and not for camels, it's pashut you're chayiv. Why should I have a having that you're not chayiv? Must be. We're talking about our case where it was covered for oxen, not for camels. And then what would the situation be? If the camels are frequent, he's the pasheya. If they're not frequent, he's an einus. Must be that they come sometimes. And what actually happened was that the camel came and broke it, then an ox came and fell in our situation, and you see that the psak is that he's chayiv. So you see, since he comes sometimes, he's the pasheya and he's chayiv. So the Gemara says, no, really the situation is, as you said, it was covered properly for oxen and not for camels. And camels, however, are common, very common. You asked if he's a posheya, and it's pasha that he's chayiv. Since we said the first case of where it was covered properly, we said the second case where it was not covered properly. But you're right, there's no real chiddush there. The Gemara now offers a different version of what the original shaila was and how we brought the rayas similar but slightly altered based on the change here. So the Gemara says, if this version, we would never have had a shaila in a case where the camels come sometimes. Certainly he's a pasheya, should have been aware that they could come from time to time, and he's a pasheya if he didn't cover it properly to withstand the weight of a camel. What's our question? The question is not where it was broken by a camel, but where it became rotten. So the situation is as follows. He covered it with a cover that could stand before oxen, but not before camels. And camels are common, and therefore he is a pusheya as far as camels are concerned. But his pshia never actually happened. What actually happens is that it got rotten, and therefore couldn't stand before anybody. A camel never fell in. So what's the situation there? Do we say, since he's a posheya as far as camels are concerned, he's also a posheya for other things that happen, like chilas pshia seifa b'oinus, and therefore if it got wormy and rotten, he's a posheya for that? Or no, we don't say such a migu type as far. So Mara's first proof works now as follows. How do we learn our Mishnah, which says that if he covered it properly and a shor chamar fell in, he's pater? And where Yitzchak Bava Kamma explained, and now we know this in our kasha, where Yitzchak Bava Kamma explained that the situation is that it became rotten. So what are we referring to? If it was covered properly for oxen and properly for camels, and it got rotten anyway, of course he's pater. Why should it be chayiv? If it became rotten, well, how is he supposed to know about it? What's he supposed to do about it? It must be the case is it was covered for oxen, but not for camels, and the camels are common, and therefore he's a pushay as far as camels are concerned. But that's not what happened. What happened is exactly our case. It became rotten and wormy, and an ox fell in. And there we say it's pater. So you see that we don't say that migu because he's a pasheya for camels, he's a pasheya for getting wormy. So Mor says no, that's not the case. The case is where it was covered properly for camels and for oxen, and it got rotten. You asked what's a chiddush for sure. It's not his fault that it got rotten and got wormy. The answer is no. Maybe he's supposed to check. Maybe he's supposed to knock on it from time to time and make sure that the wood is still solid. Kamashman, you don't have to do that. Now, the second raya, according to this version, is from the next line in the Mishnah, as we said before, and again, it's an opposite raya. And this time, the raya is as follows. It says, if he didn't cover it properly and a shor or chamar fell in, yichayev. What's the case? If you're talking about he didn't cover it at all, not for shvarim and not for camels, of course he's chayev. He's a regular posheya. Why does Mishnah have to say that? Must be it's our case. It's talking about where it was covered properly for oxen, but not properly for camels. So now what's the situation? If camels are common, he's a pasheya. If camels are uncommon, he's an inus. That must be our case, where camels are common, but that's not what happened. What actually happened was it got rotten, and then an ox fell in. And so therefore, that's exactly our case, and it says Yichayim. So you see, you do say, since it was a pasheya, as far as camels are concerned, he's a pasheya as far as getting wormy and rotten. So Gemara says, no, that's not actually the case. The case is where he covered it properly for oxen and not properly for camels. Camels were common, and now you asked that's pasha that is chayav for that, but that's not what actually happened. A camel didn't actually fall in. Instead, a camel came and he broke it, and an ox fell in. And again, you said that it's pashat, he's still a pasheya. You're right, we didn't have to say this case, but since we said the first case where he's pater, we said this case where he's chayav. In contrast, there's no real chiddush here. Now the Gemara brings one final conclusive raya from the next line in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that if a shor fell in that was a cheresh, sheitav, katan, or blind, or was traveling at night, he's chayav. However, if it was an intelligent, normal, functional shor, and is walking during the day, he's pater. So now the Gemara asks, why are you pater? You're a posheya as far as a cheresh, sheitav, katan falling in. And therefore, we should say, since you're posheya for a cheresh, you're posheya for a pekech also. So you see, we don't see such a migu. We don't say because you're posheya for this, you're posheya for that, and therefore we have a proof to our question.